What's going on? It's me, John D. Villarreal, joined by my brother, Paul F. Villarreal. Lots going on right now. We've got some key things, at least 3 key things, in our opinion, that are really critical to the Biden post-election or post-debate 2024 election right here. Also, my daughter, Janair, may be joining us right here. She's giving me quizzes here. So we're studying up for the summer, but I don't want to get too into that right now. We got to get into this. Joined by Paul Villarreal, like I said. Now, here's sort of a, if you're joining at home right now and you're kind of like thinking about stuff, here's a way to kind of bookmark what we're going to be talking about, and we'll dive into this. Number 1, will Biden drop out or be pushed out? Number 2, people waking up. Is this kind of a red pill moment? I've got All In podcast and, big time Silicon Valley, successful dude, Chamath, has been talking about some stuff. He's got a key quote. We're going to look to that in the latest All In podcast, okay, with the besties. We've got Biden versus the people that want Biden to drop out. We'll talk about that. CNN's Jeff Zeleny has reported that conversations going on in the highest levels of the Democratic Party without VP Harris or President Biden. Very interesting, to replace Biden with VP Harris. Okay, so very interesting here. I didn't say that grammatically as best as I wanted to, but you understand what I'm trying to say there. We're also going to talk about Biden using up campaign cash fast. A lot of people have been talking about the campaign cash. This is a key point. And so we're going to get into that. And then also we're talking about Team Obama and maybe some anti-Joe Dems. Well, first of all, okay, let me revise and extend that. We don't know anything. We're not making any allegations. In my opinion, as a political expert, and what I'm seeing from people talking about replacing Biden with Kamala Harris or some others, I'm seeing different pockets. It feels like, in my opinion, that people want to run a more of a left-wing campaign. We're going to dive into that. We're going to look at some stuff in there. I think that is a horribly bad move, okay? And Paul has been on there on Twitter, on X. Paul's stuff has been used recently in the national media, not the least by Dan Bongino. We think also picked up by Newsmax. Paul's been has talked to a lot of people that are deep into these campaigns, in my opinion, and we have some stuff to analyze there. Also, number 6, polls are not even close anymore. We've got Larry Sabato, okay, from of Sabato Crystal Ball there, University of Virginia. We've got other people, Dr. Alan Lichtman over there, American University. They're getting concerned. These post-debate polls are spreading out to a 6+ point differential. That is massive. As Dr. Sabato said, that is millions and millions of voters, okay? So it's not close anymore. What are they going to do? Okay, and then we're going to talk about what's next. So a lot to cover here. We're going to try to cover it as fast as possible. First things first, let's talk about item number 1. Will Biden drop out or be pushed out? Paul, what's your take on that right now?
I just posted a video, John, on Twitter from Biden at his rally in Wisconsin today, saying very clearly he is not dropping out. He said also that he is the nominee that was chosen by the Democrat primary voters. And he said also he will not be shoved aside. So as of right now, we know that the Stephanopoulos interview is tonight, and people feel like that needs to go well for him. But he is saying very clearly he is not going anywhere.
Okay, very, very huge. And we've seen that, and we've seen other reporting saying that, I think, in my opinion, if I recall correctly, Joe Biden does not want him to step out, and that Hunter Biden does not want him to step out, and that the family met at Camp David. I don't think he's going anywhere. Now, that being said, we've seen over the weekend huge ramp up, or really not over the weekend, over the holiday, in, reporting from Fox News, CNN. Oh, it's not if, it's when, it's how. I mean, Van Jones, there's been a lot of things that are being said about that. What's your best guess right now of percentages of Joe staying in or dropping out?
I think that the chances right now, look, it's very much in flux. Nobody knows what's going to happen right now. So
I agree with that.
I don't know what the percentage is right now. I know that he and his team want him to stay in. I think certainly the most influential voices in his orbit want him to stay in. So that's where we're at right now. And look, they're waiting to see what happens with Stephanopoulos, with some of the polling, and then they're going to take it from there. But I think that they want to remain uh, in place. And look, as Joe said at the rally, the voters chose me as the nominee. I mean, that means something.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And in fact, we've got this here, and I was going to jump to something else first, but actually, let me switch it up. I mean, I'm going to show this right here. We've got a screen share from Fox News. You're seeing the headline. You were just covering this rally on Twitter, on X right now, and I'm going to show this screen share right here. Fox News. As I said, this is absolute headline. Fox News. Let's show it right now. Boom. There we go. And we've got here. This is top of the full blast. Biden right there. The sub his digging in headline. Biden declares he will stay in race as pressure to drop out builds, vows to beat Trump again in 2020. Now, some sub bullet points here. White House conditions reportedly deteriorating amid pressure on Biden to drop out. Liberal journalist says president is uncanny and not of this earth in person. I mean, it's getting crazy, dude. Opinion. Trump hating media cover for Biden instead of covering him. Now that's Fox News. That is Fox News right there. So we're seeing this. Then we're seeing right here, wall of governors. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening right now. This is Fox News, dude. Okay, so I mean, you were seeing this at an absolute fever pitch right now, Paul, in terms of the pressure. Now I'll go to Real Clear Politics right here, and I don't think we're dealing with much different right here. I mean, it's really, really crazy. I think there's heavy pressure on Biden right now. I mean, and here we got it right here. We've got it right here. Let me share this right here. I've got this from Real Clear Politics. This looks like the Washington Post. And we're doing this in real time. This is how fast, as Paul says, things are evolving. And we're bringing it to you right now. We had to do this right here. And we've got it right here. We've got it right here on Real Clear Politics. Oh, my gosh. They're trying to push me out of the race. I'm staying in, President Joe Biden. Okay. But then we also have, and we're going to get to the media's sharpest attack talking point by Chamath Palihapitiya. Okay. But the All In podcast, that's huge. We're going to get to that. But we're having right here, Leanne Caldwell, Washington Post, Democrats are trying to get Biden to exit race. I mean, we've never seen this before, Paul. This is crazy. Okay. I mean, what do you think of where we're at right now, the state of play right now on Friday, 4:38 in July 5th. Okay. Sorry. My daughter's in there. I can't, I'm babysitting.
Yeah,
I can't control her.
Look, what I think is happening is that there are two factions in the Democratic Party, those that want Joe to stay in and those that want him to leave. I don't know the split of that because I'm not in great contact with people in the Democrat Party. There's obviously a sizable number of people in both camps. And of course, the most powerful people right now are those in power, which is Joe and his circle. So they outweigh maybe a greater number of people that might be against him staying in. But what I think is going on is I personally believe that there's an effort to ramp up the pressure, and I think that's been very effective. My guess is that for Joe and his team, what they want to do is they want to kind of ride out the pressure. Let's just extend the clock here and let people forget about the debate. Let me get in a couple of new appearances, and people can think about that rather than debate, and just stall for time. And I think that time is Joe's ally here. And so those that want him out have to make a big push. And they are doing that right now with apparently many in the media. And so that's where I think we're at.
Okay, and we got the All In podcast right here. Chamath Palihapitiya has been talking about stuff, and he's got the screens on the words here, and we've got Chamath that breaks it down, and the media is not doing its job. He breaks down the viral sharpest attack clip right here. And I can talk about this quote, but I think what we'll do is I'll kind of talk over. They've got some captions on it, so it's kind of, I think, even more. We could see him talking right there with the screen cap there with this, and he's talking about basically if you ask 100 people about like Elon Musk and stuff like that, they'd have different opinions and stuff. And then they were like showing, Biden about sharpest attack, sharpest attack, sharpest attack. How basically they had there's like a clip of 100 journalists all saying exactly the same thing. Sharp as attack. Right here, he's talking about 100 people on the street. What do they think of Elon Musk? He's like, you might get a general trend, but you basically get different opinions and stuff like that. You wouldn't have like all these people saying like exactly the same thing. Okay. And that's basically what you had. You had people saying exactly the same thing. And that's super weird. Right. And then basically what you're saying is, what he basically said is that, look, the real issue is you do not have an honest media here. Okay. And then that's so here we go. At the end here, he's talking about the real issue is you do not have an honest media here, and that there's no check on power. That's the problem. Okay. So basically, to me, this is like a red pill type of moment, if you will, where, people are like, okay, Chamath was a Democrat donor. I can't stress that enough. He was a Biden donor from what I recall. I mean, him and Jason Calacanis, Friedman, I mean, these were tried and true, left wing, in my opinion, from what I understand from their own words. I may be wrong. I apologize, guys. I apologize, besties. David Sachs, a little bit different and all that. But I mean, former Chicago law, and all that type of stuff. Okay, I almost went to Chicago law myself. That's known as a conservative school. Doesn't mean you're a conservative go there, but I mean, it doesn't surprise me that Sachs is maybe a little bit more to the right of a lot of the besties. Okay, but all of them now are like against Biden. Even Jason Calacanis on the podcast says, I can't vote for Biden. I don't know who I'm voting for. I'm not saying I'm voting for Trump, but I can't vote for Biden, right? And you're having this wake-up moment, Paul, in Silicon Valley, in New York, in corporate boardrooms, in the donor class. They're like, we're done. Enough of this, okay? And as Dr. Sabato said, it's like to the tune of millions now. And that we have a bunch of different data points here, and I'm going to try to we're at the 12-minute mark. I'm going to try to keep it within 30 minutes. There's a bunch of different data points here of things that people aren't talking about. You need to put them together as far as where we're at right now. Paul, your comments on this red pill moment with Chamath and his comments about the sharpest attack.
Well, look, I think that we have seen a lot of movement from people in Silicon Valley towards President Trump. Well, I think one of the probably one of the pivotal moments for many of those people is they see what has happened to Elon. And I don't want to get on a tangent with that, but there's been a lot of attacks against Elon from, I believe, kind of the government and those in the establishment right now. And so if you believe that Trump will bring change from that, I think that's a welcome development for many of these people, because really, you can't be more successful currently than Elon Musk is. So if they can try to come after Elon Musk, they can come after you too. And so I think that that's been a big part of what has happened for people like Chamath and those in the All In Pod. And you were talking about the media. I'll just say these things really quickly.
Go ahead.
Look, one of the things that what we're seeing and just kind of analyzing what's happening with the media right now is, you're starting to see, in my opinion, the media cover President Biden the way that they cover Donald Trump. What I mean by that is,
it's a great point.
There might be a 1-hour event with President Biden, and the media is now looking for 10 seconds that didn't go well. They're looking for that one moment, whereas he was never covered like that, in my opinion, previously. And of course, Trump was often covered like this. For example, Trump is giving a speech, and John Kelly was his chief of staff, and he's there, and it's like Trump said one thing and John Kelly made a face, and so that 5-second moment became what the event was about, and that, I believe, is how Biden is being covered right now. More on the media, they are now kind of because I think in large measure they have turned on Biden. They are now making rationales for why they are doing this. They are saying we, the media, were fooled by Biden's team about what his condition was, which is, I think, kind of a questionable claim, but they're kind of trying to justify why they are turning on him while at the same time removing any responsibility for not reporting on it earlier. So that's happening. The third thing I want to say is in that same kind of justification and praise for ourselves is that the media is now saying that about the Democratic Party. They're saying that it's a good thing that the Democratic Party is questioning whether Biden should stay. And that's not a weakness. It's not a feature. It's not a bug. It's a feature. It's a good thing that they're doing that, unlike how the Republicans stuck with Trump. Of course, all of this is very self-serving. It seems very kind of hypocritical. For example, the Democrats' part of the platform is democracy. Now you could disenfranchise millions of voters who chose Biden. And you're justifying that. The media is justifying that. It's very interesting to witness. The last thing I'll say before turning it over to you again here is we talked about the factions of how the Democrats are dealing with this. We also have to look at how Team Trump is dealing with this.
Yes.
They have to decide, do they want to face Biden? Do they want to face somebody else? Do they want to face Kamala? There's a lot of different thoughts about that, but they're having to game out scenarios about this. And Axios wrote an article about this earlier. They feel like Trump wants to face Biden, maybe because that's the variable they know. And if you introduce Kamala, and we'll get to this in a bit, then you're bringing in a different thing and a different type of campaign. But I just wanted to mention that there's a Trump element to this in what do they want? What are they thinking about all this?
Okay, so we've got something here on my LinkedIn that I put up, and I posted this yesterday, and maybe I'm recalling this wrong, and I apologize if I do, and I'll revise and extend everything like that, but this is my, I believe, recollection. I don't want to play it. There is a clip right here, that I will refer you to, if I recall correctly, and this is from CNN's Jeff Zeleny, okay? And I said, here was what I said. Like, I'm like, this is hilarious. Like, it's so crazy. It's almost a spoof, in my opinion. CNN's Jeff Zeleny is saying, in my opinion, that contingency plans are being made at the highest levels of the Democratic Party to replace Biden with VP Harris, without President Biden or VP Harris involved. Wow, talk about total chaos. And I go up and there's a Breitbart article that then talks about this contingency plan. It has a clip of Zeleny and stuff like that. I'll put that up here right now. We'll come back to my LinkedIn here in a second. I'll put that clip up right here, or that article rather, from Breitbart. Okay, and you've got that here. He was on with Jake Tapper, so you can refer that to yourself. All right, this is a headline from Pam Key, Breitbart, July 3rd. CNN Zeleny contingency plan underway if Biden bows out. Now, I want to say that to set this up. We don't know who these people are, right? But if you say at the highest levels of the Democratic Party and you're taking President Biden out, you're taking Vice President Harris out, who could you be talking about? Is it, I don't know, the head of the Democratic Party? Is it President Obama? Is it former Secretary Clinton? Who are we talking about? Who is the head of the Democratic Party? I mean, a lot of people, Paul, are saying that about Biden, and they all end. And the besties talk about that. Who's in charge right now? If you don't believe Biden's in charge, and who's in charge? And Chamath and the besties are talking about, and we've been fooled. I gave money. They said sharp as attack. The media covered for Biden, whatever you want to say. Who is in charge right now? This is what people want to know. And so I'm not trying to get amped up, but I'm just saying, I'm a natural entertainer, stuff like that, and used to the radio stuff. But this is a serious question. And other people have said this on Real Clear. Forget about the election. If Biden's not fit right now, what about right now? What about 25th Amendment? What I'm saying is, without being hyperbolic, Paul, is, and I will set something else up now, and this gets to our points that I think people aren't talking about, is you have very real discussions happening in real time right now. If they're going to make a change, I think they have to do it before the Republican National Convention, because then if the focus is going to be on Trump, rightfully so, and the GOP and stuff like that. Their convention, the Democrats, are right in August. I mean, I'm a political expert, right? I've advised, consulted with campaigns, run campaigns. I mean, I'm talking like, congressional, U.S. Senate, all kinds of, state campaigns, all kinds of different stuff. So, I mean, I've been around. I know what's going on, in my opinion. Now, in political science, major Berkeley, all that, law school, Berkeley, all that type of stuff. Okay. There are just logistics in dollars and cents. Now, there's a lot of donors that are flexing out there. You see Ari Emanuel at the Aspen Institute, stuff like that, cutting the money off but he said that Ari's like, Democrats are in a pickle. Other people talking about we're going to cut the money off. Well, here's the deal. You can't replace, there are certain, just as Ari Emanuel says, laws and different things that are involved here. You can't just, Biden has raised a bunch of money already and built up a war chest. That money can't go to pretty much anyone. Maybe, first of all, I'm not giving any legal advice, no attorney-client privilege, everything like that. Less than Florida, not practicing Florida, all that type of stuff. Okay. But there are certain rules and regulations here. The only person that money might be able to transfer to, in my understanding, as a talk show host here, not talking anything else, is VP Harris. So that's why that's one reason potentially that the VP Harris talk has ramped up. I also think that the non-Joe Biden running in 2024 Democratic crowd wants to run a left-wing campaign. I think that is a terrible, terrible decision. We'll get to that later. There's a lot to get to here. There's a lot of stuff that people aren't talking about that makes real difference right now. And we know that a lot of people, other talk show hosts and other people, do watch our stuff, do listen to our stuff as show prep. Strap in, lock in, get the seatbelt on, because this is the show prep right here, okay? And I've been way ahead, and this is Paul, way ahead of everything's not everything, a lot of stuff going on. So this is the good stuff. Okay, now let's get into the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about in terms of dollars. You can't win a race with no dollars. I don't care if it's VP Harris that has some name ID. The name ID for VP Harris is really, really bad. You need money to change that perception. So a lot of donors have already thrown money into the Joe Biden campaign. So how do you change that? Now, what are we talking about specifically? Washington Post. Let's go to it right now. I'll get your comments, Paul. Washington Post headline: Biden campaign says it raised $264 million in second quarter and says that it has $240 million cash on hand. That's a huge amount of money. Okay, now Trump has raised a lot of money too. Trump has raised, I think, over $300 million. Record numbers on Trump. Okay, now here's the thing. If you're Biden and you want to stay in, he just said it, he's staying in. And you've got all these people saying, you need to get out, and donors are going to cut off the money and stuff like that. What would I do if and I need to change the perception because I had a bad debate? And I'm not alleging anything. I'm just as a political expert, I'm just hypothetically speaking, theorizing. I'm trying to say two words at once on the spot. What would I do? I'd spend the money right now, dude. I'd spend the money right now. Oh, hey, you want to take this car? Guess what? You can get the car with no keys in it, no tires in it, and no gas, which is the money. And so what is Biden doing? He's spending a lot of money. Imagine, we just have, this is a huge point right here. We just had, Paul, Biden talk about, hold on, before I jump to that, here's an art, just so you think, I'm not making this stuff up. ABC News. Here's how, headline by Meg Kennard. This is July 3rd. Here's how Harris could take over Biden's campaign cash if he drops out and she runs for president. So these are real discussions happening by real media and real political operatives and stuff like that. And so, okay, so we have that. And so then we immediately go to Biden saying, oh, okay, cool. Not Biden, but I mean, where we've got a Politico right here. Politico article, talking fast. Here we go. We've got 2024 election. Biden planning on $50 million July ad blitz and more travel. And Biden trying to rescue his campaign after disastrous debate performance. That is a huge, huge buy. Okay. So he's just blasting the money out right there. If I was Biden, I think this is exactly what I would do, Paul. If they're talking about replacing me and taking my campaign money to Harris, I would get Harris super close to me. All right, have her come out and endorse me and everything like that. I would do a bunch of stuff, and I would start dropping that money like it's hot, dude. I would drop that money like it's hot, because now you've got a mutual assured destruction politically, if you will. Right? You want to take me out? Guess what, Democrats? Because as you made the point, Paul, and I'll let you make it, and I'm going to give you credit right now. And I've made the point in other ways, and on other posts, it's not just Biden at the top. That money helps Democrats down tickets. So you start using, okay, donors want to cut me off. You use that money. Now what? Now what? Are you just going to lose the whole thing because he's down 6 points? Now, what? So Paul, your comments on the whole campaign money, and then we'll move on to other key points I think people are talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, I think what you said is what people believe is accurate, which is if anybody can take over the money, it would be Kamala Harris rather than others. So I think the strategy that you laid out there for Biden is a smart one, which is if they're trying to get you out of the race, first of all, go through a bunch of your money, because then if it might be a little harder, or you'd be handing over less money to Kamala Harris. So it's not like, might not be as appealing of a situation then. But also, and I know you said this before when we were talking off the air, off the phone, which is get your own numbers up. If you spend a bunch of money on ads, your numbers go up rather than Kamala's numbers are going up. So remember, we're not trying to be Machiavellian about this, but this is what this is coming down to. This is a contest of who is going to emerge from this struggle.
They're literally trying to force the president out. They're literally trying to force the nominee out. Okay. I mean, maybe not the official nominee, but the person who got the votes in the primary that's supposed to be, who's a sitting president. It's insane. Okay. And so, I mean, this is so exactly right. Now let's talk about this. So that goes to this. There's a lot to cover here. Go ahead. You had one last point, Paul? Go ahead.
Yeah. I just going to say that, look, that makes sense. I think that's a smart approach for Biden. And, I just leave it at that.
Okay. Now, the next point is I believe that the people who don't want Joe to run, let's just call them the anti-Joe Dems at this point, right? Because we don't know who it is. We're not making any allegations, anything like that. By Zeleny, there's high levels, the highest levels of the Democratic Party. So but it's not Biden and it's not VP Harris. So fill in the blanks. Whoever you think that might be. Is it the Clintons? Is it the Obamas? Is it Donna Brazile? Who knows? I don't know. It's somebody. It's not me, right? It's not Paul. I think they want to run a left-wing campaign, Paul. I think I'm seeing all his messages on, choice. I'm seeing all this stuff about, we had Donna Brazile saying, you can't pass over VP Harris. You're seeing identity politics. You're seeing a lot of different things like that. And it feels like 2020 again. And that's just not going to work. Right. I mean, I think that is a hugely bad move. So in other words, if you think you're going to take out Biden and run this 2020 hard left campaign, and you saw, a VP Harris on the BET thing say something to some actress like "they not like us" or I don't know what it was. Like, it was just very bizarre.
That's from that's from a recent song.
Whatever it is, the whole thing was very cringe. The whole thing was very cringe. It felt like Star Wars Acolyte. It felt like just tone deaf. Like, you're seeing these things. Like, if you think I think there's people in the Democratic Party that are seeing that the woke stuff's being pushed back, that Biden's not running that. They see that Trump's getting success. They see what's going on over in Europe with the populist movement, whatever like that. And I think they want to run a hard left campaign. I think they want to run a 2020 campaign. And I think that they think they get rid of Biden and run a VP Harris or someone else, that they're going to be able to do that. I think that is because maybe they're thinking, oh, we're losing minority voters. We're losing working class people. We're losing you. So we need to get them back by going left. That is a bad move. I think that people have had the red pill moment, like Chamath and others. And I think if they go left, they're going to lose even worse. And if you look at the polling, which we'll get to next, for Kamala, it's way worse than Biden. Your comments on do you think I'm right that some of the Dems that want to remove Biden want to run a more left-leaning campaign? And do you agree with me that would be a bad move?
Yeah, I do think this. And look, coming back to who might be propping up Kamala, Charlie Sperling, I believe is his name, who's a reporter for the Daily Mail. He was on with Steve Bannon recently in War Room. He wrote a book about Kamala, and he had apparently a lot of Democratic sources. And in his book, he said, I believe, that the person who essentially put Kamala Harris into the VP slot was Barack Obama.
There you go.
So yes, I mean, it. I'm just taking it from what he said. So of course, if you put somebody into a position, you want them to succeed. You want them to achieve because they might become a proxy for you and your agenda. So yeah, we can say that. I mean, look, we don't know everything that's going on, but I'll just say that real quickly.
And let's take that one step further, because, and I'll just say it super quickly and get you back in. Early on in the as early in the campaign and in the first Biden administration, you saw the media and others. It's the Biden-Harris administration, and Biden's only going to run. Yeah. And a lot of people are saying Biden's only going to run for one term. Van Jones said that, I believe, or you know, and then it was supposed to be handed over to Harris. It was almost like. And then instantaneously, and then Biden, I don't know why, maybe politically savvily, smartly, gave Harris the border portfolio.
Yeah,
did terrible on it and other things, almost like Mayor Pete, Secretary Pete now, and has sort of fumbled the ball there. And there was people in the back. There was tension between Harris and Biden, where Harris didn't want to go. So it's like, some people get to go to Europe. I remember that when Lester Holt was asking her whether she was going to the border or not. Remember that? And because I do. It was almost like I'm not alleging anything, but my interpretation was it was almost like she felt like. Perhaps that she felt like she was being set up. And I mean, there's reporting that the Bidens and Obamas do not like each other. We talked about that before. I talked about that last time on the show, where, whether it was Hunter Biden's ex-wife and just different things. I believe that, or one of Michelle's friends. I don't know all the palace intrigue, but right. Yeah. There's different things going on.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. And that Michelle Obama basically will not campaign for Hunter, for Joe Biden. Now, whether you believe that, whether you don't, I don't know, but ask yourself this. When is Michelle Obama recently, we've seen her out there recently. When has she recently said, something very positive about the Biden campaign? Just ask yourself that, right? Why where is Hillary Clinton? Where is President Obama? Where is Michelle Obama? So, I mean, you got, I don't know, you got to fill in the blanks and ask yourself those questions. And same thing happens. This is not uncommon. The same thing happens on the Republican side. I mean, George Bush Sr. wasn't best friends with Ronald Reagan, but he was his vice president. I mean, things happen like this. Okay. So now I want to turn to this real quick and get some more comments for you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let me just say a couple of things really quickly. Number one, going back to the Biden and spending the money and that type of thing. Look, because of all of these angles that we're talking about right here, because look, I don't think that President Biden, the reporting was that President Biden would not have picked Kamala Harris of his own accord. So I think, again, there are factions here. You mentioned about the Obamas versus the Bidens.
Well, and allegedly there was some kind of deal with Clyburn for North Carolina that was crucial.
Yeah, South Carolina.
And he said some key comments about Vice President Harris. So I just wanted to tee you up for that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if Joe Biden believes that there are people working against him in the Democratic Party, which clearly, I mean, obviously there are some, but if he feels that some of those people are trying to force him out to put in Kamala Harris, who maybe is their person, their proxy, so to speak, then we get back to what you said about spending the money, which is, you know what? He might think, if I'm going to hand this over to you, maybe I'm not going to hand you the car with a full tank of gas.
Right.
Because maybe I don't want you to be able to make the trip the whole way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You try to shove me out, maybe I try to shove you out. You mentioned the mutual assured destruction concept. And again, this is politics. This is Machiavellian. This is how it goes.
Well, yeah, it almost reminds me.
One other quick thing.
Go ahead.
One other quick thing, just about the running the race, how they would run the contest.
Yes, that's what I wanted you to comment on. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I want to say is, yes, I do think, in my opinion, if Team Obama is in fact behind Kamala, or even if they just decide to help her strategize, should she be the candidate? Yes, I believe we would then see they're that type of Chicago, I call it in shorthand, left-wing type of campaign, which would be much more to the left than what I think Joe Biden would run. Yes, I do think that's true, and I would tell people on the right, as weak as you think Kamala might be, those guys are very good at running those campaigns. It might be a little harder than we might think it might seem right now. I still think Trump would prevail, but they're good at running that type of campaign. And yes, I do think that's the type of campaign they want to run. Look, that's part of the problem with Joe being in, if for that type of thinking, which is we can't run that campaign with Joe.
Yeah, there I agree, and I think that would be absolutely disastrous. I don't think that's meeting the moment at all. I had something that I put on my LinkedIn that I'll show right now when talking about Chamath and stuff like that, very quickly. And I want to turn to our last comments and wrap this thing up. And I put this on my LinkedIn, which kind of makes the point. So I think that I've already written it, so it's probably easier to just read it right here. And I'm like, okay, I talk about the Chamath thing. Right. And I'm like, I've been telling you, so I'll pick it up after that. I've been telling you tech, VC, Silicon Valley, power players, and to some extent, even corporate America are changing fast. Fantasyland, quote unquote, politics over reality, woke, worker activists, cancel culture, and hyperpartisanship is out. Political tolerance is in, critical thinking is in. We are getting back to reality-based, evidence-based, freedom-based, and results-based work, school, politics, etc. Mark my words, in my opinion, and don't get caught in the memes and politics from 2 to 4 plus years ago. Some Democrats trying to swap out Biden want to run a left-wing woke identity-based campaign, in my opinion. Huge mistake. Even Labour's win in UK was a populist win. Like most to all EU's recent elections, likeliest chance to avert a GOP blowout in November is to tact hard towards the center or right quickly. That's what I'm talking about right there. And I think that would be the right move. Now, if you look too at the polls are not close anymore. So we're going to wind down with this. Two things right here. Polls on Kamala Harris, and then what's next. Polls are not close on anymore. We talked about that. I think it's a +6. Paul, you're an expert on this. Dr. Sabato, Dr. Lichtman, the pollster Rich Bears, other people have been doing there's some polling out there. Where are we at right now with the polls on President Biden versus Trump, and then Vice President Harris versus Trump?
Well, yeah, there's a range of polls. I mean, of course, as there always will be. A poll came out today from Harris X. Now, it's actually a couple of days old. It might actually be older than some of the other polls. Basically, with leaners head to head, Biden is it's 52-48 to Trump, and it's 53-47 Trump over Harris. So Biden down 4, Harris down 6. When you put in the entire field, RFK and whatever, they're both down 5 points. So they're relatively similar there. The Daily Mail just had a recent poll where I believe Harris was down like 11 or something to Trump, and Biden was only down 5. Now we saw like CNN and others where they actually had Harris doing better. I'm very dubious about that. I know that the pollster Rich Bears, we talked about a lot on here, is very good. He doesn't believe that, or he doesn't think that Harris would do better than Biden would do against Trump. So that's where I think it is. Both of them are trailing. Trump is in the lead. Of course, it's a state-to-state race, but that's part of the calculus here, which is, do you actually think Harris could do better than Biden could against Trump? I mean, that's what we're thinking about here, right? Because look, even if you think that Biden needs to stand down or stand down soon, if you think he's going to win the election, you run him, then have him stand down. You know what I mean? If you think he's going to do better than somebody else would do, let him run the election. That's how I know. That's how Biden feels. He has said so recently, but I don't know. I mean, it's a moving discussion right now because of events that are taking place. But look,
and let's look at this.
Let me just say this. I can tell you this. There's some speculation that they could add Josh Shapiro as Kamala Harris's VP for, obviously to help her. He's the Pennsylvania governor, to help her in Pennsylvania. I think Kamala Harris would have a very difficult time unless she picks somebody very meaningful in those 3 blue wall states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I don't even know if Kamala Harris with Josh Shapiro is going to win the state of Pennsylvania. And I just say that as somebody living here, it's going to be very difficult for her in those Rust Belt states.
Well,
no
not
matter
just
who
not,
her VP is.
I agree with you. Not just that. We talked about this off air. It's looking more and more like, I'm not prepared to make a call on it, but if I had to pick one, it's looking more and more like that Trump is going to pick J.D. Vance as his vice president. You have J.D. Vance from Ohio, hillbilly allergy, all that type of stuff, as his VP, and you've got Kamala Harris as running against Trump with whomever, honestly, almost whomever she picks for of the main players that they're talking about for vice president. And I think, you're talking about potentially losing Pennsylvania, potentially losing Virginia, Ohio, forget it, Michigan. I mean, like a lot of, like you said, these blue wall, swing states, battleground states, they're lost. Maybe all of them are lost. I mean, this could be a wipeout. What I wanted to turn your attention to and the audience attention here real quickly is I got this up here. So, and I did have that Daily Mail thing, and we've seen different polls, but I thought the Daily Mail, I think, was Trump over 11 over Harris, but there's going to be different polls. But if you look at the polling,
yeah, that's correct.
If you look at the polls here, Trump versus Biden, right now, the RCP, Real Clear Politics average, is Trump by 3.3. Now that's huge. Now you say, okay, now listen, in a general election, that's really big. And if you look at the recent ones, plus six, that's the kind of stuff that's getting Dr. Sabato, Dr. Lichtman, in my opinion, a little bit worried from what I say of their commentary on air. But what I would turn your attention to, because a lot of Republicans think, hey, sometimes these polls are biased against Republicans. This day in history, in 2020, you had Biden up 8.7. You had in 2016, you had Clinton up 4.6. And we know the 2020 election was really, really close. And in 2016, Trump won. So if you give whatever you want to give them, Republicans another +3 because of the polling, if we're still, then it's even farther away. I mean, this is even more devastating. And people like Dr. Lichtman and Dr. Sabato, who study this stuff, who have PhDs and stuff like that, I'm sure are quite aware of the polling and stuff like that. And again, I'm not alleging anything. I'm just talking about, as a political expert and stuff like that. Like, I just, I feel, as someone, I haven't been in the field for a minute, okay, but as someone who's been in the field at high level, I just, if I see polls like that for a Republican, I'm like super confident. You know what I'm talking about? So, okay, that's where we're at right there. So let's spin it forward real quickly. And Paul, this is where I'm going to you tonight, right? We've got Joe had the rally thing. You covered that on X. We've got the interview with George Stephanopoulos tonight, okay? What's next? What's your prediction? Is Joe in? Is he out? What do you do if you're Joe? Where do you go? What do you do if you're Trump?
Yeah, let me just say this about the polls quickly. Look, I think there's no question that Biden has sunk in the polls since the debate. However, as we said earlier, the real question is who has worse polls against Trump or who has better polls. So even though Biden's polls don't look good, how good do Harris's polls look against Trump? I don't think they look very good. So in other words, the decision here is who are you going to go with as a Democrat Party?
Can I say something real quick?
So
I just want to interject.
Great, but Harris might not look great.
I apologize. I want what you just said, I think, is a crucial point, and it goes back to my other point, which is it's its own axiom in politics. You can't beat something with nothing. And so right. So it's almost like a choice election on the Democratic side, right? Meaning that we're at a point now where it's not that, yes, maybe Joe is politically damaged, but it's bigger than that. It's the red pill moment, as Chamath, as we're saying, so many American voters now have been red pilled in that they don't trust the media. The entire Democratic brand, the entire establishment brand is damaged politically. And in many people's eyes, whether it's Elon with X, as you said, and All In Podcasts, John D. Villarreal Show, Paul's out there on Twitter, there's a lot of people that are feeling, I'm not speaking for any of us, I'm just saying there's examples of sort of different kinds of broadcasts and programs out there. Separate point. There's a lot of people that think now that Trump is the only current viable antidote to the lying and the silly and the lack of performance and the lack of all these things. We're at a point now where people can't pay their car insurance, their home insurance, their food bills, all of these things. And voters globally are like, enough of this. My kids are my kids. I want to be able to pay the bills. I want to be able to have a job. I'm tired of all of this stuff. And it was the debate was an emperor's has no clothes moment, not just on Biden, but on the entire Democrat media establishment. Paul, that's what I'm saying here. Is that your take?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And look, the way the conception, because there's a memo out there now called The Case for Kamala Harris, which is being passed around between Democrat strategists and donors. The hope for those who want Kamala Harris is that she's going to come in, and again, they're going to run the left-wing campaign, they're going to talk about Roe, they're going to do these different things, and basically they're going to kind of bring her in as a supposed blank slate like Obama in 2008, and everybody's going to forget about everything you just said. They're going to forget about the economy. They're going to forget about being red-pilled. They're going to forget about how much things cost and so forth. And they're going to focus on the issues that those at the left wants them to focus on. I think that there's a lot of undue optimism in that.
Yeah.
But to be fair, again, that group of strategists that I think came from Chicago, they're very good at what they do.
Oh, absolutely.
And they know that the media will help them.
Oh,
in my
absolutely.
opinion. Look at what we've seen in the last, since the debate, the kind of frenzy that's been going on since then, that will be replicated, in my opinion. So I think it's going to be tougher than I think a lot of people in the right.
It's going to be an election. It's not done yet,
but
no doubt about it.
That's right. But I still think at the end of the day, people go in to pull that lever, they're going to think about, were things better under Trump, or were they have been better under the Obama-Harris administration?
I agree. And that's no doubt about it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. That yes, there'll be a campaign. A lot of Democrats are great at running campaigns. Media is probably going to help them, all that type of stuff. But I think there's been such damage done to the Democrat media brand, if you will, to the mainstream media and the Democrat and legacy media, that and we're seeing it globally. Look, I mean, different issues, stuff like that, but some similar themes. Macron, major trouble in France. Trudeau, potential trouble there in up in Canada. We're seeing the EU elections. I mean, it's just shifted, not the least of which, and again, you see it in the All In Pod, you see it in all kinds of other media. Barry Weiss, there's so many different, Glenn Greenwald, there's so many different people that were, big time liberals or Democrats or whatever. It's shifted. And that's what I'm saying is they might, there's at the end of the day, the results are going to speak. Trump already had momentum. He already was up. And this is just devastating. And that's why even Ari Emanuel, I think, was they are in as he said, a pickle. I mean, there is no easy way out for the Democrats. I think the best thing they can do, and I'm not being like sarcastic sacks or anything like that. I know some people think, hey, if you want Trump to win, keep Biden in there. I mean, yes, there is the fresh face X factor of a different candidate, but it could be a lot worse. Remember, I'm jumping ahead. They chose Biden because Biden was the one that could beat Trump. Okay? They didn't, that was the whole thing. My point is, there's no easy way out now at all. At all. Again, I mean, when you pull the curtain and you see the Wizard of Oz, and you can't unsee that. There's just too many things that people cannot unsee in their own lives. What they can't unsee is when they go to the grocery store. I don't want to go on and on and on, but I'm just saying politically, the Democrats are in a terrible position, particularly as it's happening if this fight, because Biden has dug in, continues to spill out in public. Then I think you can see total cataclysm, total apocalyptic election results for the Democrats, because this is not easy to square. Not unlike what we've seen, Paul, after October 7th And we see, I mean, we still have that. We had people saying that Biden can't win Michigan now. I mean, there's so many things that have not been resolved on the Democrat side. And this is what Sachs has said and what I've said. The Democrat Party is a collection of interests that want something from the government and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different coalitions there that do not, and in any party there's a bigger tent. But I think even more so on the Democrat side is you've got coalitions that absolutely do not agree on some very, very core things. But I'm going to leave you with this. We're coming up on the 50-minute mark here. I know we covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I'll let you get your final comment in there. But I think that if I have to guess, Biden stays in. I think that's the best way for the Democrats to try to win anyway, because I don't think there's any other good way out for the Democrats. I think all this other stuff of, we're going to hot swap it, I think, and it's going to be clean, that is fantasy land. They may force them out, but it's going to be it almost reminds me of the Cruz crew voters that thought that somehow at the convention, it was really going to be Cruz. And they were going to force Trump out, and they made themselves look like political idiots. Okay. And Cruz damaged his brand severely, maybe permanently. He's kind of rebuilt himself a bit, but it's taken a long time. And even that's like, he's never come back to the level that he was before that. Paul, your final comments, and we're going to close out.
I think that's a really good analogy with Cruz. And you're right, he has never come back to the same level. And I agree with you. I think that Biden, in the end, will stay in. And I think that is the correct decision, because he was voted as the nominee. Right. He's the guy that saved you guys. Really, let's be honest. Biden was the only person that could have beaten Trump in 2020. He saved you guys then. He preserved the legacy of Obama and the modern Democratic Party. Even if he were to lose, I think that you have to go with him, because he's the guy. And I agree with you. It's just, grass isn't necessarily greener on the other side if you bring in somebody else. And I know that, again, Rich Barris, the pollster, would tell you Kamala will lose worse than Biden
Absolutely.
will.
Absolutely. Look at her performance. They wanted to promote her. They've tried so many. It was the same thing with like Hillary Clinton, Secretary Clinton. We're going to relaunch her. You could do 20 relaunches. It just wasn't there. And it's way worse for Kamala Harris. And this is the thing. So this is what you said, and that's the obvious point, but it is the absolute best point. The people, the Democrat voters, state by state by state, voted for President Biden. He's a sitting president. If you try to do the hot swap, if you will, or something like that, that makes the whole thing look like a super sham, in my opinion. Okay, especially when President Biden is telling you he does not want to leave. I mean, this is insane. That we're even having this conversation is insane. Final comment, Paul. We'll close it up.
Yeah, I mean, look, I believe the last sitting president to stand down for re-election was Lyndon Johnson. Well, Lyndon Johnson chose to stand down. He made that decision, and I believe he faced a pretty tough primary contest. That is not what happened here. This is a completely different situation, and I believe that, I think in 1996, the GOP had a pretty good idea that Bob Dole was going to lose the general election, but they stood by him.
Yeah.
Why? Because he was the
I was at that convention. Believe me, I was him. Yeah, I was on the floor there at the convention in San Diego for the GOP and everything like that. And I wasn't a delegate, but I was press. I was covering that stuff. Yeah. And believe me, it was. Yeah, there wasn't electricity happening there, like you know what I mean? And no, we love Bob Dole. No disrespect to Bob Dole.
Absolutely.
But it was
great
just,
guy.
A great guy, great veteran, appreciate his service, everything like that. But it wasn't like, the feeling for there was trepidation. There was cautious, very, very cautious optimism. So, and
stood by him.
But we stood by him. That's right, 100%, no doubt about it. So
exactly
this is disloyalty in the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party is showing itself. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up there. Looking forward to your comments. I see we got some good viewers here. We appreciate that. For Janair, I'm John and Paul. Appreciate you, everybody. We'll continue this conversation on the next show and obviously on the socials. Thanks so much. Be sure to follow Paul on Twitter and myself on Twitter, my LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, X, all of it. See everybody. Appreciate it. Ciao, Janair.